Thank you for having me here. Let me just fix my volume. Hopefully it's good. All right.
So hello, everyone. I'm Allie Jean. I'm the creator of the Visibility U Business Incubator. And I also run a media company called Red Unicorn Media. And today I have the luxury of having Miss Sarah Marie Thompson on with us to talk about creative alignment. She's a creative lifestyle expert and soul guide. She also has a podcast hosted at Wild and Creative, which is also the name of her business. Sarah, go ahead and just introduce yourself, and let's start talking about creative alignment, because I feel like creativity, whether you are, in depth with it like we are, where we actually make it a sole purpose of what we're offering our clients and even ourselves in our personal life, we're just immersed in it. But you don't have to be. But I think that regardless of what you sell or what you do in your life, creativity needs to be something that we're aligned with and practicing with and really experimenting all the time with, to reach results quicker and just, be able to get what we need and want out of life in an easier, more fun way, I should say. It's really, for me, it's all about having fun.
Yeah. Well, okay, so just really quickly, like, what I do for people, like you said, I'm a creative lifestyle expert and soul guide. How I kind of got to that place, well, I'm not going to tell the big story, but why I decided on what that was going to be for me was because I was really able to marry the two creatives, which are the most important creatives that we can never experience: the physical, tangible, artistic aspect of creation, and then the mental manifesting aspect of creation. And then I started to get really, really good at them. I was always really good at the physical aspect of creation, but then it was more of the mental one that we really have to get good at. But when we can marry them together, then that's where people's magic happens. But I'm a really big believer that everybody's creativity is their personal magic. I'm like such a big believer about that. And it was funny, just as you were talking, I was thinking, I haven't really created anything this morning, but I did just take, half an hour making my new espresso machine drink that takes a really long time. And I was like, you know what? I could get really good at that too. That's a very creative thing.
I love that. And you know what?
Yeah.
Super creative when I'm like totally tapped out in every way that you can think of. Put me in a kitchen and all of a sudden everything starts to get, reignited. I feel like myself again. I feel empowered. I feel creative. I actually almost became a chef. So I totally get how food and drink can be creative and spur on those feelings when you're not really like looking for creativity in a way, but it's something that we actually need to put in our body. So I love that.
For me, that's definitely gardening, like outdoor like gardening stuff. That's like my meditative, like creative state where it's like, what you're doing, but like you're not thinking about it. And sometimes you'd be like, I just went 2 hours without thinking anything, right? But that's like the perfect kind of restorative, meditative creativity that's really, really good for you. Also, that is aligning you with kind of like your theta brainwave state. So when you're kind of in that like autopilot, free-flowing creativity, you're also accessing like your theta state, which is your most powerful, creative kind of manifestation state. So that's good. You want to get into like those activities. Painting's another one for me for that.
Oh yeah. So there's all kinds of activities that we can do that, maybe we're trying to be really creative in our business, whether it's like delivering an actual creative piece, like I might with a website or a logo, or it might just be thinking more creativity, for marketing and sales, or having more of an outside of the box. People like to use that term in the way that they're creating relationships online and off, and maybe what their goals are going to be moving forward, and just being able to be more free with that. So there's actually activities that we can do that have nothing to do with those goals that will ignite where we need to be in alignment and and empowered by what we're trying to create in our careers.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly thinking about it because I love creativity. Like, I've always been creative. I'm like looking around at all my stuff. I mean, everywhere I look, there's just creativity brimming. But I will tell you this, there's not really a week that goes by where I don't have some kind of struggle in my business or with my projects and even my personal projects where I think, gosh, I wish I could just not feel this way. So I think the emotional aspect of creativity is really heavy for a lot of people. In fact, some people might call it like a creative block. It can make you cry. It can make you scream. It can make you avoid, or it can even make you think you're not creative.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, as soon as you were saying that, what I wanted to mention to you, and I'm sure we've talked about this before. I'm pretty sure, because I bring it up whenever people start kind of talking about creativity and like their go-tos for things. But I'm a really big believer that there are 4 types of spiritual intuitive people, intuitive people. That's spiritual intuitive, physical intuitive, emotional intuitive, and mental intuitive. And the creative individuals like us, we usually tend to fall mostly under physical intuitive and emotional intuitive. And so like everything's a major roller coaster ride. So when you said like it's hard to go a week without something happening, I'm like, yeah, it is. like everybody feels that way.
Right. I mean, you're a professional. I would just call you, just to kind of, generalize it, but you're a creative coach. And really, I kind of take that role on as well in part of my business. But the funny thing is it doesn't matter how much experience you have. There's like this struggle. And so we're the same in that way. And it's not because I'm not good at it or I have something wrong with me. I think that it's just, when you're thinking about creativity, it's sort of like a puzzle. And if you don't enjoy searching out that answer and knowing that there are multiple answers to that question, I think that's where you have to start with your perspective. If you don't like that, it's going to be really difficult to be creative in any way in your life or your business. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, even what you were just saying there, I mean, that there are, a few different avenues that you can go down. But so when we say the word alignment is not just your happiest route. It really is about you having your happiest route, but also it being a route that is fully supported by kind of like why you're here, like your soul's gifts and skills and attributes. So that's the type of work that I really do with people. So it's funny because yes, we're totally both creative coaches in a way, or creative mentors in a way. You're definitely more, and this is interesting. I always find this interesting. You're definitely more in the physical aspect of creation, right? Like you're in there with the paints and stuff. And that is so me. But that's not really how I help people online. Like my thing online really is that I help people figure out those initial first steps so that they can start going in a direction that feels really, really good. And then when they understand that fully, then helping them kind of create I guess more of the intangibles, like the offering systems and stuff. And then like you come in. So it's like there's always, I don't know, there's so many different parts of creativity, right? Like it's hard to just say.
That's why it's such an exploration for probably the rest of my life. I also was discussing something that might be part of what you have experienced in when you talk about creative alignment. This has been on my mind most of the year, but lately it's gotten super intense. And I'm actually probably going to be doing a blog post about it today because it's just coming to me. Like I cannot stop thinking about it. It's so interrupting. And I'm like, I can't ignore this anymore. I have to start doing some major research and sharing my thoughts about it. But really, and I've heard it from other coaches. So it's not like this is a new concept. I've read articles about it before, but how can you be creative if you're not healthy and focused? You can't. Focus itself, and I say healthy because the human mind, it's, when you have any kind of health ailment, you're going to struggle with focus like right away. So yes. I have this, so like the time of the month, the womanly time of the month, this is happening for me right now, and I have no shame in letting everyone know this because it's like the first thing to go is focus. And and so I almost like, it's like, let's go into major list mode. Let's set some, timers. Let's make sure that I am, as focused as I can be in this type of condition. And then what am I eating? What am I putting into my body that can, you know, make this even a better situation than it is without having to ignore it or complain or cry or take the day off. That's really not an option for me all the time. And I've learned to be creative under all kinds of circumstances, but it always really comes back to, you know, maybe you're not completing the projects that you want to complete, or you're not working with the people that you want to work with, or you're not making the money that you want to make. I swear it just all comes back. I keep thinking, focus, focus. Where is your focus? This is where someone would love, you know, they would love to work with someone like you or me, where I'd say, or you might say, well, let me ask you some of these questions, and then we're going to find out where, you know, you don't need to be focusing anymore.
Oh, yeah, right. So, I mean, if I even look at past experiences of myself, and that's really where my mess became my message, like, you know, later on, was that I was doing way too many things. I wasn't focusing on anything specific. I had 6 businesses. I was crying that all 6 businesses weren't working. You know what I mean? Like, it was just that thing. And it's like, hello, you should be focusing on, you know, 1 or 2 things if you really want to be successful in that way, right? But I was really scared to let go of all the other things because I was like, well, I like them too. I don't want people to think that I wasn't good at them. Like, we, as creatives, we have like major ego too, right? Even though we don't want to say it, we do. We have lots of ego in lots of areas because our creativity is our craft. It is our magic. And, you know, especially as a creative kid, you know, that's kind of like your thing, right? When people are like, oh, she's the creative one in the class. It's like, you're like, oh, that's my thing, right? And so then that's kind of like what you take with you, like, into adulthood. So you don't want to let go of a lot of stuff, but you know it's not right for you. But I legitimately did not know what to let go of because I was so fearful of that thing being the thing I could have got really good at. And so when I finally understood what my soul's direction was and like what my soul attributes really were and like what my soul's mission really was, and that's what I help people do, I was so happy because I finally was able to let go of all those other things I just liked to do. And it was like guilt-free permission to just be like, all right, I'm gonna like work on these like 2 things and it's gonna be amazing. And that's like the most exciting part. Yeah. But that's the thing. I think the hardest thing for a creative in business, because creativity is like our natural like birthright, right? It's just kind of like we all have it to some degree. Sorry, I have allergies. But the hardest thing for us is to say, I'm only gonna really work on like this one big thing, because we do love everything. As you were saying, I was like, yeah, oracle cards, love that. Jewelry, yeah, did that business. I'm just like thinking about it all, and I'm like, yeah, that's why it was so hard, because like I still love all those things, but realistically, we know that we can't spend all our time on all the things, right? Yeah. If we had all the money in the world, that would be awesome, because we could just spend all our time on all the things, and I think that is everybody's goal, right? But
to not want to, I just keep looking around my stuff and I see it all. I see some things that I just let go. Some of the things I don't see anymore. So like, yeah. I play the cello. This is an interesting segue. So the emotions of not being in an alignment with something that you're good at, it wasn't happening for me. And in fact, like, it was part of a dream that I had as a child. I wanted to go to Juilliard. I wanted to play for the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. And just the way that my journey went, that was just never going to happen by the time I was able to fully commit. And then when I was able to fully commit, I tried to, which made me feel guilty for many years. And I ended up just playing alone forever. And then I finally, a few years ago, sold it to a young girl. She's in high school and she just loved it. It was the act of meeting her and her parents and selling her the cello that I wasn't able to bring to full fruition. I thought it was going to make me feel so sad. And I do feel sadness because there's like a guilt. I didn't check that off my list. You know what I mean? I didn't do what I said I was going to do. And I loved it. And I love cello. I love any bass instrument. It's like, oh. But once I got that out of my life, there was a huge space available for the things that I'm really meant to do. And I have done this several times with all kinds of things. And so a lot of people even have this experience when they are in a career that maybe was pushed on them by their parents that offered them all kinds of security. We've seen this in movies and shows, and we probably know somebody, and they're in this career and they just feel guilty and they feel that weight of misalignment in their career, and they're not really able to attach creativity to anything because they're so out of alignment. And any little thing, I mean, you know, I'm really into energy, like any little thing that is in my studio or in my home or on my person that is in misalignment when it comes to creativity or my life's purpose, it's like, it's still a little bit of energy, even if it's just a little bit. It's like, am I using it? Is it part of my purpose moving forward? If not, why do I still have it? Why am I still keeping it away in a drawer or down in the basement? What's the story behind that? So I've been looking at all this stuff for years now and going through my life and kind of going, you know, where, and the more I let go and the more I kind of focus, so bringing back to the focus on what it is that I do love to do, the more money I make, the better people that are coming into my life that surround me, the more fun I have, and the easier it is for me to come up with solutions for any kind of problem that I'm having. And coming up with a solution is very creative. So if you're in a state of panic or you have a lot of misalignment in your life, you know, as you know, because you coach people all the time with this, there's going to be this feeling like something is off, like something is not working here, and you're just not going to be able to attain it. Even if you're making good money, it might, you know, maybe you're making $150,000 a year, but you're still in misalignment, and you could actually be making much more than that. And you could be actually much more happy. And maybe you could even be working less. I mean, there's all kinds of things to think about. But people feel trapped. I mean, creativity can really, there's like this horrible dark side, right? That's what I keep thinking about all the time. Anytime I have creative block or I have these emotions run through me and I think, oh my God, like, why can't I just love it all the time? Because I don't, because it's hard.
Well, I would definitely say that I wouldn't say it's like the dark side, but I would definitely say the stormy day. Like for creativity, which is funny because I have always believed that my hippie name is Storm, no matter what. Because I was I wasn't a grumpy child, but I didn't like smile till I was like 8. All my baby pictures, I'm not smiling. But I was very like introspective, and I was very intuitive, and I was very much like, as a Scorpio, also always like analyzing, like not observing more so. And but anyway, that was me as a child, but also very creative. It was very interesting. But as you were talking about the cello, I think that we have like a lot of things in common, because I've always wanted to play the cello, and now I'm asking my husband to like buy me an electric cello. So I'm hoping to really get into it, because I also really like any violin music. That's why I think I like bluegrass too. Like, I don't really like country, but bluegrass, like, I have a real connection to it. But anyway, my story, real quick, is that when I was in grade 7 band, I didn't really have the confidence yet to say, I'm going to be the only one to play the French horn, or I'm going to be the only one to play the violin. So I did the clarinet. And
the French horn.
I know, right? The French horn just like looked really creative and amazing, and I always wanted to play it. And so I went with the clarinet, and I regretted it ever since that moment in grade 7 band. So I call this play the French horn. You know what I mean? Like when it's like you have the choice to either do something that you really love and feel really good about, or taking the easy road, right? Because all your friends are doing it. So it's just like, play the friggin' French horn already. I would tell myself that all the time, because it's just like, it just reminds me.
There's pain involved in being creative. So even if, well, I'll just tell you, you know, when I started, I was like 8 or 9, and the cello was huge. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I had a full size because I was a taller kid.
How did you like carry it around?
Oh, it was stupid. I mean, I'm telling you, because everyone looked at me. I had to carry this huge thing down the street. It was heavy, and I had to act like I didn't care because the damn thing was so expensive. I, had to get it up on the bus, and I remember those big steps. And this thing was thousands of dollars, so it's like not like just a clarinet. It was this crazy instrument, and it was either that or
the family nest egg.
my mom was like, "What are you doing?" It was so loud that I actually had to get a mute. You can get a mute to put on, like if you live in an apartment or something.
Okay.
Your instrument, because cellos are very loud. So just like the French horn is very loud, and just like the drums are very loud. So that was like, I want to play the saxophone, but the guy said that my lips were too big and it would just be wrong.
Oh my gosh. Wow, you didn't think that would be a problem.
But they're all really difficult instruments. And so I kind of wanted to bring up this fact is that if you are a really highly creative person, even if you're having problems with it and you're not totally in alignment yet, and some of the stuff's ringing a bell, a lot of people like me and you out there, we're choosing really difficult roads, because when you're creative, you're choosing something that probably isn't popular. It's probably, even in business, if you're making a creative choice in your business, maybe it's not very popular. You're not seeing it everywhere. And so it makes you feel like maybe I should just choose the clarinet because everybody else is using the clarinet. And it's hard. I mean, and I had glasses. I had these big blue glasses, and I'm carrying the cello. I mean, and I had a spiral perm. I mean, the whole thing was unpopular. I was just crazy. Well, and it didn't turn out well. I mean, all these years later, I sell the cello, and I'm like so happy it's out of my life. But that doesn't mean I hate the cello. Like I love classical music and all these things, and I found that it created space to let some of that go. It also taught me a lesson in that, where am I focusing, and am I choosing something that is doable, but that might not lead me down the road of perfecting my craft, and am I how much do I love my craft, and what is that? I mean, someone like me, I could have hundreds of services. Really, I could have hundreds of services available, and so even just being creative enough to create packages and different opportunities of ways to work with me so I can help people with their creative solutions has been difficult. So it just seems like the creative road for anyone isn't always the easiest. So they hire people like us to do it. But I just want people to know that even the experts in the creative field, we're always struggling because we're always advancing. And so every time we evolve and we create more maturity in our creative, knowledge bank, it's going through another transition, and we're uncomfortable again, and we experience creative blocks, and we experience, the stormy days, like you were saying. I love that. Maybe Care Bear.
Like, best to create on.
What'd you say?
Cloudy, stormy days are the best to create on. You know what I mean? Like they're like they're inside days, they're the best. But, I just wanted to share, because you brought up alignment again, just in conversation, because that's kind of like what we're talking about here. But, when you're doing like so many things, and this can just be like hobbies as well, right? In our mind, like we feel like we need to compartmentalize like our time, so it's kind of like, I got to work on my crafts here, I got to work on my instrument, I got to work on my painting, that painting's been up for so long, or out on the easel, I got to finish that, I got to work on my work stuff, I got to create that course, and there's like so many things, and it's like it's really hard to like get rid of all of them because we love them all, and some of them are hobbies, some of them are work stuff. But it's a really, that's what really like gets me kind of stuck, I feel sometimes. So when that happens, I really have to like write it all down. Like I'll literally write on my to-do list of everything from finish the painting to finish those lessons for that course to whatever. Because even if it's 25 things, I can then be like, okay, I'm looking at them now. I'm going to like, it just helps me figure things out, right? So I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to work on this, this, and this. Thursday is going to be like a day off. I'm going to do more creative stuff that day. But if I don't write things down, like I don't do anything, then I just like, I'm like, oh, there's too much to do. You know what I mean? Like I'm a little bit overwhelmed, and I don't do anything, and things don't get done. So I'm telling everybody this. I have done a lot of stuff in my business this year. Like I get a lot done compared to a regular person, but in my eyes, I'm not doing anything enough. Not doing enough. And I will say, like, at least the first 6 months of this year, I feel like I didn't do anything at all. Although I started a podcast, I created a membership site, blah 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 blah. But in my eyes, the things that meant the most to me, the things that were like the biggest things on the list that I kind of kept putting off because I was like, these are really special, those didn't get done because I don't know why. I mean, when I think about them, I'm like, if I rush them, I mean, that's going to suck. I don't want that because it's not going to be my best work. But also, I think those big things that I keep putting off, I don't want them to be anticlimactic because like, they're really, really special to me, right? So again, it's so interesting how like different things end up on different parts of our to-do list. I am the type of person where my mind is like, let's do all the easiest stuff first on the to-do list and work on the biggest stuff later, which isn't serving me really because the bigger things are like, the bigger things are my special things. They always keep getting left like last, right? So
both of us know what to do. We're just helping each other. You haven't noticed, everybody out in Facebook land. So yeah, I do the same thing. And I've noticed that recently, which is again why I'm bringing up focus. So there's only like a few hours out of the day for a normal, healthy human being to actually do a great amount of focused, amazing, purposeful work. And I find that so little. I'm always like, where's the time going? How do you figure out what time of day is going to be perfect for you? I actually learned this through another mentor that I follow. His name is Isaiah Hinkle. He's a scientist, and so he's always talking about biology. So I'm really interested in the human body and our brain, and that's why I bring up focus, because for a creative person, it's extremely hard to focus. For someone who thinks that they're not creative, or maybe that they're not being creative, or they don't know how to be more creative, it really lies in your health and in your focus. Mm-hmm. The way that he explained it was a really interesting way. So what he did, and I did this too, is he rated 1 through 10 from the time he woke up how focused he felt each day. You know, for like 5 days. You could do it for 10 days. You know, whenever you feel satisfied, you do it on your phone. I did it on my notepad. And I found that my most focused times usually, so sometimes it's going to be different. You know, life gets in the way and maybe you forget to do it, or you're like, wow, this is so weird, but I feel more focused and it's midnight. So there's just, you know, you're not always going to be, but you will see a pattern. And until you see a pattern, you know, you should keep doing this. Mm-hmm. So 1 being the least focused, which would probably be the moment you wake up. You know, the moment you wake up, you're like, I'm a little, you know, I'm awake. I just had this weird dream. I'm a big dreamer. So for me, waking up is always, it's not just about being groggy, but it's really about my dream state. So I have lots of, I'm not going to get into it, but I have the dream thing going. And I've been studying that for years too. But I found that my 2 to 3 hours of really great focus work is done between like 11:30 and 2.
Me too.
You know, so I try to do the things that are really important to me during those times. And I find that when I'm doing things outside of that chunk of time, that I can do them, but I'm not as fast and I'm not as like stealth and like ninja. And it can be the creativity. It can be the, you know, the dull stuff of business. It could be accounting. It could be, you know, whatever I decide to put in that time slot is really my most important thing. And, you know, it's not end all be all. Sometimes my most important thing gets done in the best way, like I said, at the weirdest times. So you don't have to like be like, oh, it's only between 11:30 and 2. But noticing a pattern like that about your mind and your body and the way that you're working over a period of time easily by just rating it 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest to focus, it's interesting. And you could do this, you know, a couple times a year or once a year and really see that it's probably changing. So maybe your health's improving and you've been working out and all this stuff, and your focus time changes, or you have a baby and your focus time changes from morning to afternoon, you know. But to be so aware of where your focus is super interesting to me. And I think it's one of the, you know, golden keys to understanding where you'll probably be more creative. Or you could make more creative choices. I just feel stronger during those times. And that's just your body, you know. That's not me being special, or I'm telling you that, you know, your focus time is between 11 and 2. You got to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, I would say, like, I agree with you there, but then I really thought about it, and it's not just the time of day for me. It's about how inspired I am, and it's very I really chalk it up to like my environment. So for example, if I do my best work too like when I'm alone. So if my husband's around, like he doesn't like, you know, interfere, but I just feel like all my attention's not there, right? So I do my best work like when I am alone, but also too, like I said, my environment's also having an interior design background, like energetic interior design, like my environment is like everything to me. So I love, especially like the warmer times of year, like sitting out on my deck in the country, looking over the lake, having some classical music play. Like I have the whole like scenario scene that gets me like really, really creative. So if I can like get into that space, I can pretty much like do really good work. Something that you mentioned, just about health and stuff like that. Two things that really make people feel more creative are water and also movement. So, you know, that's why people love to take showers. They don't realize it, but like, you know, you're really replenishing. You're also getting rid of a lot of toxic vibes on you as well, right? When you shower, that's why people love to be in water. And then movement also, people get a lot of great ideas when they're walking or what have you, right? So what I kind of came up with years ago, and I call this finding your creative bliss. So, for example, my creative bliss is an equation of things, and it's like me sitting out on the deck in like the afternoon with the golden sun coming in. My cat's there. I'm listening to creative music. I've got like a caramel macchiato or like a coffee drink with me. I've got my computer there, my journal, stationery that's beautiful. It's like the whole equation that's like I'm in like the creative mode. And so like if I can't get to all of those things, like say it's winter and I can't be outside, okay, what can I bring from my creative bliss toolbox to be with me right now? So I always tell people, like, this is a really good thing for you to do. Like, journal it out, like, to everything. What sounds do you hear? Like, what smells? Is there a candle going, your favorite candle? Like, what's happening in this whole thing right now where you can, like, pull from it later?
Yesterday, this is perfect timing, because yesterday I was basically creative all day long. It was really amazing. And it was later afternoon, and I was painting behind here, and there was certain types of music playing. He was writing, the good coffee. There was like, so all the senses, like what you're talking about. And I literally started crying because I was so happy. And I was like, I'm going to cry right now because I'm so emotional this week. But I thought to myself, this is exactly what I pictured when I was a little girl, that I thought that this is who I would be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're always trying to kind of reach that, even if you don't know exactly what that is, because I didn't. I think the first thing I wanted to be was a cookie maker. And I still love cookies so much.
Only a cookie maker. Only cookies.
So not exactly that, but yeah. And I was really emotional about it. And so that was like such a great vibe. And so that's my creative bliss. I need to write about that so I can recreate that when I really need to. And so I can make sure that everything's in alignment, so that my business works so much more smoothly.
Yeah.
So I love that idea. So I'll just journal it out and like start creating, maybe like make little sketches of what's, going on around me. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, like so clear as you possibly can. So for example, I've got 35 brand new, super expensive journals up in the queue. You know what I mean? Like up in my office that's like, when it's time for a new journal, I have to like think about like what journal I want, right? Because they're all so beautiful but they all make me really inspired. So the type of journal you're using, right? When I ask my husband, I'm like, can you grab me a pen? He'll bring me a pen. I'm like, not that pen. I'm like, I want a really nice pen. And he'll bring me another one. I'm like, nope. I want like the so-and-so. He'd be like, why does it matter? I'm like, it matters, okay? It matters what type of pen I'm using for my journaling. So again, like all of these tiny little teeny details, someone else's creative bliss might be that they like to go outside into like a field where they used to go with their grandparents and like lay on a blanket and journal with this special fountain pen they have, and maybe it's the birds chirping, whatever. Like it's different for everyone, but I've often been asked the question when I talk about this like an event or something, and they're like, well, what if you can't go outside? You know what I mean? Like what if like that environment of your creative bliss is not accessible to you, right, at the time that you want to get creative? And it's just like, it's just about knowing your equations so that you have that toolbox where you can pull from. What can you pull from? Like, can you make your favorite rose tea? You know what I mean? Like is that a good tool that you can bring into the thing? It doesn't have to be all of them. When it's all of them, it's amazing, but it doesn't have to be all of them, right?
Yeah, so sometimes I'm from Michigan, and so there's a part of the year that is extremely inside.
Yeah.
So it's cold, and it's the kind of cold where it's not fun snow cold. It's like cold that hurts your back just when you go get the mail.
Yeah.
You're just like, you're all like freezing and it's dark. And
Yes.
I'm very sensitive to it. It's been hard for me to figure it out. And we'll probably move at some point in our life somewhere where it's not so harsh during the winter, but who knows? But in any case, I do funny things like this where I'll play like Jamaican music. Of island music, Hawaiian music. Maybe it's like island jazz. That's super fun. Oh my gosh. Island jazz music. You like feel like you're on a cruise or something.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just trying to, there's always going to be, I can't something, right? There's always going to be something that's a little bit out of place. There's rare days where everything's completely perfect and it all there and it's all for you and you did all the right things and everyone around you did all the right things and even more. Those are rare days, but obviously remember them when they happen. And I think that was yesterday for me. Yesterday was so beautiful and it was funny and it was there was unexpected things that happened and my creativity was high and there was some kind of ambience in the space and electricity flowing, and I can't wait to like pick out a journal and do exactly what you're talking about and just write about everything in major detail so that I understand how to recreate that. That's kind of how I figured out how to use manifestation a little bit easier, whereas I really went into detail when the things that I wanted to happen, for instance, maybe I raised my prices and I finally got that first sale with that larger price point. What was I feeling like that day? These are creative ways that me and Sarah work all the time. So how did I feel that way? How did I act? What did I say? What was the energy between me and this woman that created a space where she said yes? All these things, and then recreating that over and over and over again as best as possible, and even expanding on it if I feel like I'm comfortable with that. So same thing, but here it's actually, you're talking about same thing, but in a bigger way, a more personal way. I just really love that. I keep thinking about coffee. Like I'm a big coffee fan. And or teas. Like I love expensive coffees and teas. Just the luxuriousness of the taste of them, how they make me feel, even just smelling them. I'm real foodie type of person. And so that would be part of the recipe, really, of the
Well,
alignment.
scent is everything.
Creative alignment. Yeah, I love this.
Yeah.
Topic. So excited. I'm like
Scent
more
is
creative right now.
scent is everything. Like, there's been events, well, we were talking about this like a while ago. There's been events that I've gone to where, you know, they've asked after, was everything great? Like, what did you think we should have changed? I'll be like, you know what? There's no scent there. And scent for me is a huge factor of like getting into inspiration, remembering, lots of different things, right? So scent is really everything. So if you can bring scent into your equation, like I'm a huge candle person, and this is a whole other story, but I lost my sense of smell for 2 years once because I was very angry about something. It was like an energetic thing that happened, and I finally got it back after 2 years after having a healer come to my house, and I cried. Like, it was like 2 years of tears because I wasn't able to smell anything for 2 years. I smell coffee, nothing. Like, if I smelt oranges, it was a little bit like chocolatey, but things were like really messed up. So I was like hating life for a while there because I was so like scent oriented. But another interesting thing, I wrote down 4 things that I have to, they're all like not even like tied together.
Yeah,
but light versus dark. So you said in the winter time gets really dark, and that's you know, not so inspiring for a lot of people. What I find to be really interesting is that I am very inspired by light and bright rooms, right? Like a lot of light coming in. My husband, he can go down into like the dark dungeon and like play music in the dark. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, guys, is it just like a girl guy thing? I don't know, but like he does not need the light. I'm like, I need the light. So I always find that really, really interesting.
Yeah, light. Like, I actually, when we moved here, I couldn't, it was one of the happiest moments because there were so many windows.
Nice.
And I remember when we first moved in, we didn't even have the budget to put blinds and like stuff, treatments up on all, there were so many windows. Like, we're like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. And so for days, it was like we were getting up with the roosters because, you know, there was so much light in this house, but it was just amazing, even in the bathroom. And I say that even in the bathroom because there were so many homes I lived in, and maybe you've experienced it too, where it was like this little window in the bathroom. You're like, you know, it's like the one place that actually should have more natural light coming for all kinds of reasons. But yeah, light is really, really important, especially during the winter time here in Michigan. So I understand that.
One other thing I was thinking of is, and this is just like a total side note, but also interesting, and I'll do yours for you if you like, but something that I provide to my clients is I kind of know a bit about numerology and that kind of thing, but we have certain energetic alignment days where all of our numerology, like a couple days a month, like I can't even say it, you guys understand. We are like on point, like we are totally aligned with numerology and the cosmos. And so it's really interesting knowing those alignment days, because you could have had that alignment day yesterday, you know what I mean? And it was just like, oh, those are the days that you want to like sign documents on. Those are the days that you want to like do big projects on, launch things on, right? Because you were like so energetically like supported. That's cool. That's an interesting thing. So another thing, sorry, I have all these things I wanted to mention that are like good points. Now, when we were talking about creative bliss, we were like, you know, what if you can't get to a lot of these different things, right, to add to your equation? One of my things on my equation was, a big one was that my cat was always there, and I felt really, really creative and, you know, inspired with my cat being there. Well, she has now passed away, and I do definitely feel like something's always missing. So that was a really big thing I had to kind of get over for the first little bit, because it was, well, I mean, an animal is an energetic being, right? And when they're not around, it definitely, you don't feel it. But this same thing happened actually about 8 years ago with my grandma. So my grandma was like my creative muse. She like taught me how to do everything, stained glass, paint, all that kind of stuff growing up. So I felt like all my creativity I really owed to her. So when I would complete something, I would show her. But when she passed away, I was like, there's nobody to show. Oh, that wasn't accurate, but I was just like, I don't want to do anything. It took me 8 months to create anything after she died, which was very weird for me. But I remember because I was so lost of how to get back into the creative zone. So there's probably somebody listening that's going to relate to this. I had to literally physically put my paints in my car and drive to a free morning paint class downtown, because I was like, this is the only way I'm going to paint anything, because I have to like force myself to go in this room and like I have to do something while I'm there.
You were forcing yourself.
Yeah, that was the first time I did anything after 8 months, but that started my whole painting process again. So it's like, if you're so unbelievably blocked or stumped or feeling like you can't, you have to just put yourself into a position like and force yourself to start doing something, right? Because, you know, that's a mental creative block, right? Like that's not, I don't have the tools. That's like super mental block.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also thinking about my best times that I'm like the most inspired. And I honestly, you might be able to relate to this, but I really do chalk it up to feeling really, really good. And for me in my business, I feel really, really good and focused when I feel successful. And when I feel successful, I feel really passionate. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because to do that, I also need focus to like, you know, do good business and bring in income, right? But I feel the most inspired when I feel the most like I have achieved something and also feel successful in doing so. So it's a really weird full circle for me. I don't know if you feel that at all at times, like when, you know, yeah, when you've done good, when you've done like a great month or have a great sales day or something, you're like, I'm going to paint everything, right? But when you're not, you're like, I'm going to try and paint today. But those are the days you need to kind of like get in gear, right? So it's really hard.
Right. You need to create that blissful atmosphere, which I can't wait to write about and add that to my to-do list, which is crazy today. I posted that earlier. I was like, I have so much to do. It's actually impossible. But at least I have the list. At least I wrote it out. It's in front of me. And I actually started checking things off already today, which was good. But there's a whole mindset behind all of it. And I like that you said, I'm going to try to paint this today, because I have said that probably a gazillion times. And I've been working, like personally, I've been working through so much creative nonsense. It has nothing to do with my business or the way I advise people, but it's really my own kind of like, this is my personal project. And I want to do these things. And this is again about misalignment. So I've been struggling for the past few years, really wanting to do portrait art, portrait paintings, really wanting to do this certain kind of skill level in painting and drawing. And I'm not doing it anymore. Like I'm over
Were you doing it at one time?
It's not in alignment with me. And I actually had someone close to me say, why don't you paint the things that you love? And we started talking about it. And he was like, you know, you love, like, it actually brought me back to my childhood. And so there's a lot of psychology behind, you know, what is blocking you from your pure creativity. And you don't have to be an artist, but in my example, this is what it's about. In any case, I immediately felt successful. And you can kind of see it. It's a purple, let me see. Yeah, it's kind of little, but what you see back there on the mostly white canvas is a purple rabbit's foot. And I've never been happier painting something. It's a purple rabbit's foot. But I had this, there's a whole story behind it. And I loved it. It's something, I had a box when I was a little girl and I put things in it. And these things meant a lot to me and I kept it throughout for a very long time. And that was one of the items. And there's so many different things. And so now I'm going to start painting those things that actually make me happy. I started looking like on eBay and all these things that I can remember, because I don't have these things anymore. I don't know what happened to them. But I started looking at these items and they gave me so much happiness. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what hoarders feel like. Because I was like looking at all these different things that I could collect, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to paint these things. And it was just really interesting to enjoy and 100% enjoy and feel 100% successful about something that wasn't, in my mind, for the last 3 years, a mature like painter skill, or some people might still say forever, you're not a serious artist, and I don't care anymore. That's not, it doesn't matter to me. So there's like all this mindset, whether you're coming up with like a marketing sales funnel for your client, or you're doing a painting, or you're trying to come up with a solution for whatever. It could be like the way that you eat. There's all kinds of creative solutions you can come up with. But if you're in misalignment and it feels like, sometimes we think, oh, we just need to get through the creative block. Allie goes through this, Sarah goes through this, I'm going through it, so I need to force myself. But sometimes you just need to stop. Sometimes it's a pure sign that it doesn't mean that I'm not a good painter. It means I'm painting the wrong things, or maybe I'm using the wrong colors, or I have the wrong perspective or mindset around it. And so then I have to come back to basically, I always go back to my childhood. Every time I go back to little Allie, I swear to you, she knows exactly what to do, exactly. And I'm always like, but that's not serious enough. This is serious business. This is about making some serious money in my professional career. And that's where, when I start thinking like that, that's when everything goes off track. And it's so funny to me. It's like the more serious I get, the worse everything gets.
We're probably smarter back in the day.
What?
You're probably smarter back in the day as a young child, for sure, because it was just straight instinct and intuition, right? Without any other kind of mind chatter. But starting in January, I don't, it might have been later than this, but I just remember having this conversation with myself in January. But I was like, okay, once again, you're doing a bunch of things again. Some are not really tied into each other. I know having this conversation, I know that's what you want to do, but how can we bring it back to basics? And so I was literally hashed this out in a journal. I was like, back to basics. Okay. I know that in a Sonia Choquette book, she wrote, if you want to find out your life's purpose is sharing with the world the things you love. And that is simple as that. And I was like, okay, that's bringing it back to basics. So what do I love? I love reading. Okay, writing a book makes sense to me. I love oracle cards. Okay, making oracle cards makes sense to me. I love painting and, the whole colorful stuff. How can I implement that into my business? I love listening to audiobooks. Okay, doing a podcast makes sense to me. And then all the other stuff was just fluff. You know what I mean? So it was if you have to kind of have that conversation with yourself where it's just just do the things you love, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's not like we have to reinvent the wheel for things. If you just love something, do it. Just do that. It's not so hard. It feels hard. It's not so hard.
It sounds weird. I'm actually thinking about someone that's in this group right now, and she loves to dance, and she has all kinds of amazing skills, and she's in this kind of incubator stage of many different paths that she can choose. And right now she is basically dancing it out. She's not doing any of the things. She's just dancing as much as possible, which I think is amazing. I think it's great. I think she said last week she danced 3 times, 3 nights in a row. And I was like, that is you're having fun. Now, I just want to point this out. It's kind of how can you integrate for someone like that into a brand identity, into, a business, that energy? Should she become a dancer? Maybe not. Maybe there's these other things, but she can actually inject the feeling through her copy, through photography that she shares, through her brand of what dancing is to her and how it makes her feel and how it makes her clients feel, but not necessarily becoming a dancer. Mm-hmm. So there's all these things. And I mean, this is what kind of clogs everything up all the time. Not that she shouldn't, she might become a dancer, but I'm just saying, we can be good at so many things. And if we're taking, little pieces of ourselves every single week and putting them in all these different categories, that's what we call spreading ourselves thin. And even though you're great at a lot of things, that doesn't make you a genius if you're doing them all the time. that actually just makes you spreading yourself thin. I don't know what that would be, but it's just, it doesn't work. I've done it. You've done it. She's done it.
My family,
people I've worked with have done it. Yeah, I always try to like think of Starbucks. I'm like, listen, let's just make coffee. Let's just be good at coffee. Like, what's my coffee? What's my, you know, coffee product that I'm going to be like the best coffee maker in the world? So
true.
That's, you know, and then how do I make all the other stuff, all the things really injected into my brand, into my life so that it's still there. It is still there.
Well, the nice thing about creating a lifestyle brand for yourself, and this was something that definitely helped me like clear and focus a lot of the stuff that I was doing, but before it was a bunch of stuff that I was doing that was not necessarily connected. But when I put it under the aspect of like a creative brand, so my Wild and Creative brand, like the podcast made sense. If I write, like writing books made sense, you know, being a mentor made sense, because it's all still kind of like the same message and focus. It's just with different tools, right? So again, products if I wanted to, but necessarily it's not taking away from the focus of the brand. But I do get a lot of people coming to me at the very beginning when we start working together, and they're like, I'm doing these 3 things, but I don't really want them all together. And it's just like, look, if there's no way that we can like connect these in a way that makes sense, you're going to feel really overwhelmed. You're going to hate your life. Like, let's just face it, right? So because you're going to be literally, again, focusing on 3 businesses, when if you can amalgamate things that make sense, then your energy is so much more alive, right? Like for your brand, for the business, for what you're working on. Of course, these are all like just tips that we're giving, and it's just like, you know, it's hard to kind of put all these things together, but you know, maybe people can do one thing that we've said.
One of the things helps. I mean, this is all very vast, and it's all personal things that we have succeeded in. We've been through it. One of the things that, you know, I say personally, like I usually don't talk about this, but I think you brought it up. Sometimes you do have to just do it. So you just, oh gosh, I don't even want to bring up the Nike thing, but
yeah, you mean like just force yourself?
Yeah, do you know how many times that I forced myself, and it actually was a great thing? It actually, I was like, oh my God, thank God. Like getting that, for instance, the rabbit foot up on my canvas. Seriously, that was one of the best things and the hardest things I've ever done. It literally took me 3 years to put a freaking painted purple rabbit foot up on a canvas. And that may sound silly, but it actually just flooded me with the feelings of success that is now manifesting all kinds of amazingness for me and my business. I feel so creative today. I feel like a wall's been knocked down, and I never do any of this stuff alone. And sometimes you do have to force yourself through. You have to force yourself to write. You have to force yourself to, maybe you're not feeling good and you don't feel like doing that live stream, you know, because your health isn't like tip top and you're feeling emotional or something. Me today, you know, but you just do it. And after you start doing it, you feel so much better. You're just like, yes. And it's that feeling of checking something off the list. And sometimes it's the feeling of knocking an entire wall down that's been keeping you. Like it's keeping you.
It's tricky because I totally think that, yes, and I've said before, like you have to push yourself when you are feeling stumped. Most of the time, I really like to create well, like organically, right? So I tend not to push like you're doing more physical creations a lot, where when I do more physical creations, I find I need the extra inspiration for those because they mean so much more to me. But we've talked about this before, and I say 1,000 times, it's like, you know, you always have to create for yourself first, right? So again, when you're creating for yourself first, there's magic there. There's hopefully usually no self-judgment, but when you're creating for other people, it's the whole other situation, right? But I think that when you said like that rabbit foot thing, and again, I think that that really is about like bringing it back to basics, because I think people feel the most aligned and successful when they feel like they've come home again, right? Or when they feel like it's a full circle for them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's things that I've created even 10 years ago, like quizzes or mini courses or something like that, where I'll be looking through these old binders. I'll be like, this so makes sense for me to put out now. And you feel so good about it because you're like, oh, that wasn't for nothing. It's like it happened for a reason, right? So in those moments where you can kind of like bring it back to basics and bring it home and bring it full circle, that's when you feel really like aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sarah, I'm so glad that you were able to join me today to talk about creativity. It's definitely not just for the artist. It's really anyone who's looking to up-level their life and conquer any kind of problem with just an out-of-the-box solution. And I love everything that we talked about. How can people reach you and get a hold of you online and learn more about you?
Yeah, so they can basically, my Wild and Creative website, so www.wildandcreative.com has everything. You can find my podcast through there. You can find ways to work with me through there. You can find my group through there, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, definitely check out my podcast. Allie's been on, I think there's 2 episodes you've been on in there. And yeah, and there's a couple different ways to work with me. One of the ways is basically like a little bit of a longer term mentorship. That's for somebody that's kind of beginning and needs to implement a lot of the stuff along the way, finding alignment, then also putting it into kind of product form and offering form. And then the other way is for someone who's more of like a go-getter business, well, I was going to say guru, go-getter, business enthusiast who definitely wants to retweak and realign things because things are not feeling right. And that's more of like a full day experience. But yeah, I mean, the thing to remember is just like, you know, whether you have a creative business or not, your business is actually always creative, right? Because what we do is always creative. So just looking at it in ways where you can bring your authenticity into it and bringing it back to basics and bringing it home. Because even if you're an accountant, there's ways where you can bring it home, you know what I mean? And feel really, really good about the stuff that you're doing. It doesn't have to necessarily be working with color or like physical shapes and stuff like that, right? So I think that the internet has really made the creative business that much more wondrous, like in a way, right? I mean, the thing is, if you make hats for cats, you could be making $1 million selling your hats for cats. But the idea of an artist, it's a really interesting word, and I sometimes flip-flop back on it all the time. It's like, what is an actual artist? Does it mean you're selling your work? Or there could be an artist that's, you know, making 1 painting a year and selling it, or there's someone who makes a creation every single day. So again, I don't think that people should get caught up if they are in the creative realm or like kind of getting into it of what an artist really is. It's just about like what you want to do, like in how you want to show up. Like forget about these words, right?
Mm-hmm. I love that because it's so confusing, and I meet women all the time who are just waiting to put their work out or to contact galleries or to, they're just so highly intimidated because they don't think that they're a real artist. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Forget the words, just bring it home, get back to
create for yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. So thank you everybody who's joining. If you're watching the replay, we're so excited that you're watching the replay. If you have questions, just tag us. We'll definitely be checking it out and answering. Know that you're not alone, that even that most highly creative people in the world struggle with creativity from time to time. And there's so many different perspectives to look in on. And we hope that we have brought, you know, at least a few people something that will settle your mind and bring you back home so that you can do some more creativity in your business and let some things go and just let your hair down a little bit and have some fun. You know, having fun isn't about not being serious about your company, which has always been the struggle with me. It's like I have to be serious. Every time I do that, it's like everything gets out of alignment. So stay in alignment by being who you are and really understanding and not being afraid of doing what you love. I know when I first started to, just really quick, because this is so important, when I first started thinking about my purpose again, I constantly would think and read and watch movies and all this stuff about how all of a sudden they started doing what they loved And then they became successful and amazing and everyone knew who they were. And I was like, I don't get that. Getting past that point is always really difficult, that mindset. So if you're there, definitely reach out to us, because you know, you're not alone. It is confusing to understand what that means in the beginning, because we always associate everything with money. And if you're doing something you love that makes no sense and no one's supporting you and no one's giving you any money and you don't know how to get past that point, it's tough. You know, you definitely want to be in some type of contact with Sarah or with me or both of us, because we know how that feels too.
Well, that's just the thing. People are kind of just searching for that financial validation and to connect it with like their creative task. That's what I was doing with the 6 businesses. I was like, well, one of them will start doing really well and I'll just know that that's the one to follow, right? But like, honestly, that doesn't happen if you're not putting all the energy into that thing, right? It's not going to be like, your creativity is your magic, but still it's not going to magically just, you know, start making you money, right? But I guess the biggest thing is if there's people out there right now that are like doing their thing and they're not making money, right? It doesn't mean you have to scrap it all if it's something you still love. It just means that you have to kind of shift it 2 degrees over. Like, what can you bring into your business that's different, that's kind of switching it up, changing things up, changing the way that you're operating, but not giving up on your dream that you still love, right? Because we hear stories about people like getting successful after a week. We also hear stories about people doing amazing things after like 10 or 12 years. And the big businesses out there like Starbucks or like whatever else, right? Like, it wasn't their first year where they got super successful. It was like their 15th year. So I know that sucks for a lot of people to hear, but again, like, it just, yeah, just have to keep doing it.